Okay, so the camera lights were just blinding, right? The world thinks it's waiting for some kind of confession.
Yeah, but instead they get this truth bomb, something nobody really expected.
Exactly. It came out in, like, the intimacy of a podcast conversation, Armchair Expert, I think,
Mm-hmm.
and this one single unvarnished statement just, boom, it reignited this cultural firestorm that had been simmering for, what, 20 years?
2 decades, easily, and we're diving deep into that today. This private battle, these just cruel media narratives she endured.
And that specific statement, the one about genetics and adoption, it really showed how conditional public sympathy can be.
It really did.
Welcome, everyone, to Starscope Report.
Join us as we dig into the latest Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and, yeah, those viral influencer scandals, too.
From surprises on the red carpet to controversies blowing up on social media, we really get into the stories behind the headlines, behind the fame.
So let's get started on this Jennifer Aniston story. It's complex.
It really is. And we have to start with the landscape she was navigating for, forever.
Okay, yeah. So the big headline, the sort of 20-year secret is this. While everyone was accusing her of choosing her career over having a family.
Right, the selfish workaholic thing.
Exactly. She was secretly fighting this incredibly grueling, emotionally taxing fertility journey.
So let's unpack those media narratives first, because they were running in parallel and were both so toxic.
They really were. Okay, number one, that selfish workaholic idea, that got huge traction, especially around the time of her marriage to Brad Pitt. The story was she just cared more about her career, about being a star, than, settling down and having kids.
The implication being she was too driven, maybe even too cold.
Something like that, which she later came out and just flatly said was absolute lies.
Right. But then there was the flip side, the other narrative.
The poor Jen trope. The tragic figure, eternally heartbroken, always pining.
And the insidious thing about that one is how it just diminished everything else she achieved. Her incredible success, her influence, all boiled down to this perceived lack, this failure in her personal life.
It's like they couldn't let her be successful and independent without attaching this asterisk of sadness or failure. It served a purpose, systemically.
How do you mean?
Well, by constantly focusing on this supposed private failing, not having a child, the media kind of neutralized the threat, maybe, of a woman being that successful, that powerful on her own terms.
Wow. Okay. So she was only seen as complete if she hit that specific life milestone.
Pretty much in the public eye, at least. And that's the backdrop for the truth that finally came out in, 2022, and that allure in her view.
Yes. While the world was busy deciding if she was selfish or just sad, she was going through hell privately.
She admitted it. She said, I was trying to get pregnant, spent so many years protecting my story about IVF.
And it wasn't just IVF, was it? She said she was throwing everything at it.
Everything. IVF, drinking Chinese teas, just enduring this immense physical and emotional toll.
Now picture going through that while living under this constant, intense media scrutiny.
Oh, it's unimaginable. Her body was basically public property, a battleground.
Every tiny change. Maybe she had a big lunch. Maybe it was hormonal bloating from the treatments.
Yep, splashed across a tabloid cover. Baby bump alert for the bajillionth time, as she put it.
The cruelty of that. Going through fertility struggles while strangers are debating your reproductive status based on a photo angle. Wow.
It is. It's a unique kind of pressure cooker for celebrities. And eventually that silence, that dam she built, it had to break.
And it did. When the doctors finally gave her that verdict, that ship has sailed. That's it.
She actually found peace in that, didn't she? A kind of closure.
Yeah, she said she felt a little relief.
Yeah.
And that hard-won peace. That's what set the stage for this statement that broke the internet.
And that's not even the wildest part, honestly. The backlash to what she said next, her really honest statement about it all, that's where things got really intense. We'll unpack that specific quote and the reaction right after this.
If you're finding this look behind the curtain fascinating, like how we're unpacking the real stories versus the headlines, please hit that subscribe button right now. You won't want to miss where this goes.
Okay, we're back. So, Jennifer Aniston reaches this point of closure with her fertility journey.
Right, she's on the other side of it, as she said. Found a little relief, zero regrets, no more agonizing can I? Maybe.
And that clarity, that peace, it allowed her to address that question, the one that everyone seems to ask people struggling with infertility.
Oh, yeah. The inevitable, why don't you just adopt?
Exactly. Often said with, good intentions, but it can feel so dismissive of the original desire or the complexities involved.
So on the Armchair Expert podcast, she's asked about this. And her answer was just incredibly blunt, raw.
What did she say exactly?
She said, quote, I don't want to adopt. I want my own DNA in a little person. That's the only way, selfish or not, whatever that is, I've wanted it.
Wow. Okay, just laid it bare.
Completely. And the reaction was instantaneous and really, really divided, fractured.
How so?
Well, that public sympathy that had fueled the whole poor gen narrative for years, it just seemed to curdle almost overnight for some people.
It turned into criticism because she voiced a desire that made people uncomfortable.
Exactly. The criticism really zeroed in on this idea of genetic preference or genetic primacy.
Right. People online, lots of commenters, found her focus on needing her own DNA to be, well, uncomfortable. Some even called it harmful.
Harmful in what way? What was the argument?
The argument was that by stating it so publicly as a major celebrity, she was maybe inadvertently perpetuating the idea that adopted children aren't really yours if you don't share DNA, that biology is the ultimate definer of family.
Okay, I see the critique, that her platform magnified the potential impact of that personal feeling.
Precisely. The concern wasn't really about her having the feeling many people acknowledge the desire for a biological child is common, it's human. It was about the public declaration from someone with her reach.
So it seems like a huge risk then for her to say that so plainly. Why not just stick to a safer narrative like, I've made peace with my path?
It was a massive risk, and that's why the backlash hit so hard. But, that very honesty, that's also why so many women who'd been through infertility found it incredibly validating.
Ah, okay. So for them it was different.
Yeah. Her vulnerability, her willingness to say the uncomfortable thing out loud,
Yeah.
it acknowledged this really powerful, often unspoken desire for what some call genetic mirroring.
Like seeing yourself in your child.
Right. And for women who felt that same pull, but also felt pressured to immediately pivot to adoption, as if it's just the simple, obvious next step, her honesty was like a release. A moment of catharsis.
So she prioritized her truth over maybe public palatability.
It seems that way. She chose radical honesty at that moment.
And that honesty, that reclaiming of her own story, it wasn't entirely new, was it? She'd been building towards this for a while.
Oh, absolutely. You can actually trace this shift back years earlier. Remember that Huffington Post essay she wrote in 2016?
Vaguely, yeah. It was called For the Record, right? During another wave of those relentless pregnancy rumors.
That's the one. And it was a major turning point. It was basically her planting a flag saying, enough.
What was the key message there?
Well, she started it with that iconic line, for the record, I am not pregnant. What I am is fed up.
Okay, yeah, I remember that now. Pretty direct.
Very. But it was way more than just a denial. It was this powerful declaration of autonomy, rejecting the idea that her worth, her happiness, was tied to her marital or maternal status.
She was basically saying, my life isn't defined by your checklist.
Exactly. She wrote this really critical line, we are complete with or without a mate, with or without a child. We get to determine our own happily ever after for ourselves.
That's huge. That's her taking back the narrative completely, defining her own completeness.
Right, and that was back in 2016. So when you look at the 2022 quote about DNA through that lens...
It makes more sense. The HuffPost essay established her self-worth as whole, regardless. The podcast, quote, just defined the specific nature of a personal desire within that wholeness.
Precisely. She had already found peace by letting go of the outcome, by accepting herself. The quote wasn't about needing a biological child to be complete. It was about acknowledging that if she were to pursue parenthood, that specific path was the one she had personally desired.
And she was okay saying that desire wasn't fulfilled, and she was still okay.
Yes. And here's where it gets even more interesting, that unintended positive consequence of that controversial quote.
What was that?
It inadvertently sparked a really vital public conversation, or at least a clarification, about adoption.
How so?
It forced people to confront the reality that adoption is not a cure for infertility. It's not just some easy plan B or a consolation prize you pick up when biology doesn't work out.
Right. It kind of exposed how simplistically people sometimes talk about adoption in that context.
Exactly. The adoption community, advocates, adoptees themselves, they've been saying this for years. Adoption is its own unique journey. It's often an invasive, demanding, years-long process.
There's training involved, Home studies?
Intensive training, background checks, financial scrutiny, and crucially, it requires a deep understanding and commitment to the potentially specialized needs many adopted children have.
Needs often related to trauma, loss, identity development, especially for kids who aren't infants or come from the foster care system.
Absolutely. It's a specific calling, requiring a specific kind of readiness and commitment from the parents. It's not about finding a child for a family, it's about finding a family ready for a specific child.
So connecting this back to Aniston's quote, her statement that she didn't want to adopt, that she specifically wanted the genetic connection.
You could actually view that admission, maybe controversially, as an act of profound self-awareness and even responsibility.
How do you mean responsibility?
Well, by being honest that she wasn't drawn to adoption, that her desire was pinned specifically to genetics, she was essentially acknowledging she wasn't prepared for, or perhaps suited to, the unique demands and commitment adoption requires.
Ah. So, ensuring a child wasn't brought into a family primarily as a backup plan or a second best way to fulfill an adult's desire.
Exactly. If your heart isn't truly in the adoption journey itself, with all its complexities, you're likely not the right parent for that child. Her honesty, while jarring to some, prevented that potential mismatch.
That's a really important perspective.
Yeah.
It reframes the quote significantly.
It does. It suggests a level of self-knowledge that's actually quite responsible when you consider the well-being of a potential child.
So when we wrap this all up, the real story isn't about whether she became a mother or not, is it?
Not at all. It's not about the box office success either, or even the IVF journey itself, ultimately.
It's about the journey to freedom. The freedom to define her own life.
Yeah. The hard-won freedom to finally say, my life is complete on my terms, regardless of whether I fit your expectations, independent of public approval or tabloid narratives.
Her whole experience, spanning decades, it really does hold up a mirror to our culture, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It shows the immense personal cost of battling those relentless societal pressures, especially ones that define a woman's worth through marriage and motherhood.
So the final provocative thought here might be that her greatest achievement wasn't Friends or the movies or even surviving the scrutiny.
But maybe it's achieving that radical self-acceptance, the peace that finally allowed her to speak her truth, her whole complex, sometimes uncomfortable truth.
And owning her narrative, finally.
That's the real victory.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture.
Thanks for tuning in with us for this deep dive, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.